So we're going to work on this week's Bible lesson. We just wrapped up the third C, which was catastrophe. So we've worked on creation, corruption, catastrophe, and do you remember what the fourth C is going to be? Confusion. Look up here. God must punish sin. God confused the language. Let's find out what that means. So, today we're going to talk about something else that happened after the flood. It has to do with language. What is a language? Think about that for a minute. It's the words we use to speak to each other. Good job. A language is the set of words we use to speak. I'm speaking to you right now in our language. Do you know what our language is called? English. You can understand me just fine because you speak the same language as me. But if you go to other places, you might hear people talking in different languages. If you went to Japan, you would hear Japanese. If you went to Mexico, you would hear Spanish. There are all kinds of languages in the world. Can you name some others? Good job. Here's some that I know. There's German, French, Portuguese, Irish, Hawaiian, Hebrew, Russian, and Spanish. That's only a few of them, though. People say things in many different ways. Some people who are deaf and cannot hear speak by using their hands. That's called sign language. Remember, we've done some sign language with our memory verses. How many of you have heard some speaking in other languages or have seen someone that uses sign language as their language? Very cool. I know I have heard some German, Italian, Spanish, and even when in Africa, I can't remember what it's called right now, Zambia, and they would do a certain type of language, and it was very interesting. It had some clicks with it also. So I've heard a few different languages myself. You'll hear very many in your lifetime, and it can be very interesting. Can you speak a different language? I know English is our first language. Maybe some of you can also speak Spanish, or maybe you can speak French. I don't know. Miss Dana can speak English, and that's about it right now. But it's always good to learn a second language. Languages all sound different. Some are very interesting. Did you know that there are over 6,000 languages around the world today? Wow, that's really cool. God's command. Where did all these languages come from? Well, let's find out. We're going to look in the Bible at Genesis, and we're going to be in chapter 11 today. Listen carefully as I read verse 1. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. Did you hear that? How many languages were in the whole earth at this time? What did the verse say? One. Wow. Yes, so that means all the people in the world at that time spoke the same words, the same language. You see, when the flood was all over, Noah and his family got off the ark, and after a while, their families got bigger, and their families had families, and soon the whole world had lots of people again. They could all understand each other perfectly because they all spoke the same language. They also were all living in the same place, but God told the people to take their families and to fill the whole earth. That means God wanted them to move to different places all over the world and to fill it up with people. There was a reason for the confusion that set in, though, so let's find out. God wanted everyone to spread out. He wanted them to move away from each other and find new places to build their homes. But the people didn't want to do what God said. They liked being together in one place. They didn't want to leave. So listen what they did do. We're going to go down to verse 4. Still in chapter 11, verse 4. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. And let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be disappeared over the face of the whole, or dispersed, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." Did you hear what God's word said? What were the people planning to build? A city and a tower. They wanted to build a city and a tall tower because they wanted to stay together, like this. The people did not want to be dispersed or scattered around the world. They did not want to obey God. How high did the people want their tower to go? To the heavens. That's right. They wanted their tower to be very tall, so they made bricks and started building. When the people decided to build a tower and stay together, were they obeying God? No. What do we call it when we do not obey God? Disobeying or sin. How does God feel about sin? He doesn't like it. God hates sin. That's right. God is holy and just. He does not like sin, and when these people decided to disobey God, he had to punish them. So we're going to go down to verse 7 now. Chapter 11, verse 7. "Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." What did God do to punish the people for their sin? Did you hear it? Confuse their language. Good job. They may not understand one another's speech. Do you know what that means? They just couldn't understand each other. They could try to have a conversation, but it would be like if I was speaking English and you were speaking French, and I couldn't speak French and you couldn't speak English. So we just would be babbling back and forth to each other probably. God confused the people by making them speak different languages. They could not understand each other anymore. Can you imagine your work and talking with your friend, then suddenly the words come out of your friend's mouth, but they don't make sense anymore? Like if you're on the playground and you're talking to your best friend about wanting to go to the swing, but they did not understand what you were asking them to do. That would be crazy. All around you, people are speaking in languages you don't know and you can't understand. You can't figure out what they are saying to you. What do you think that would be like? Think about that for a minute. Maybe it would be something like this. See if you can understand what I'm saying. Bonjour. Do you know what that means? What about ciao? Guten Tag. aloha, liho, hello. You knew that one. I was saying hello in different languages, but maybe you only understood one of them. That would be kind of crazy on the playground, wouldn't it? If you don't know these languages, then you wouldn't understand what I was saying. That's how it was when God confused the language. People didn't know what everyone else was saying anymore. So the people scatter. That was the punishment God brought on the people. He changed the one language they all spoke into many different languages. Dads and moms and their own kids probably spoke the same way, but they couldn't understand the other families, so it got very confusing. We're going to look at chapter 11, verse 8 and 9. I want you to listen for what God told us what he did after he changed their language. The Lord dispersed them from there over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore, its name was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. So, how many of you have heard about the Tower of Babel? Have you heard it before? Maybe in Sunday school? Maybe with your mom and dad? The word Babel means confusion. So that place was called Babel because that's where the people were building their tower and God confused them. God did this because he needed to punish the sin. The people disobeyed God and sinned against him, but God is holy and he must punish all sin. He did that by changing their language and making new ones. What did the Lord do after that? He dispersed them over the face of the earth. Yes, this is the fourth C, confusion. God made the people move and scatter all over the earth. That's what he told them to do in the first place, right? They stopped building their tower in their city, and because they couldn't understand each other anymore, the different families moved away from each other, and they went all over the world just like God wanted them to do from the very beginning.